Welcome back to 70 times 7, the platform where we explore the dynamics of forgiveness. I, to a very large extent, have already disclosed that I can resonate more with the lost son who went away and came back by God's grace. And I'm sure that you, Busi, would be able to resonate with at least one portion of this parable.
Yeah. Well, I choose to resonate with the lost coin because when you look at the lost son, he's a human being. He knew how to go back home. And the other one was the lost sheep. It's an animal. It can walk back home, of course, with the aid of the shepherd. But the coin is not alive. A coin is dead, as it were. And it did not know that it was lost. So somebody had to look for it. The owner of the coin swept and looked for it. So it was a laborious act to really look for that coin, the coin that did not know that was lost. And sometimes I feel that in my life, God has intervened. And there are things that I've done in my life which I did not know at the time that I was doing something wrong, but God intervened. It's only now that when I look back in retrospect, I say, Lord, you have been good to me. You know, I was oblivious to certain things that were dangerous to me. As I sit here, I cannot praise myself because the Lord literally stooped down and took me out of that pit that the devil had cast me in. So ignorance sometimes can cause us to do things that we will regret later on.
But ignorance, as they say, is no excuse for breaking the law.
It is not an excuse. It's not an excuse.
But isn't God wonderful?
It is.
That He is the one who came searching for you.
Yes, He came searching for me. And what is also phenomenal about the story is that, you know, I don't know back then, but today, coins don't mean much anymore. We would rather go for paper money, for the dollar, for the rand, for the, you know, for paper money, which is much more valuable than the dollar, than the coins. But, you know, the owner of the coin looked for the coin. I cannot imagine myself stooping down in my living room looking for a lost coin.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that is almost insignificant.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes what's insignificant and of less value to you may not be the same for the other.
Definitely.
And while sometimes our lives are like that, we might appear to be insignificant and of no value. Our value is determined by Christ.
Yes, yes.
Therefore, He saw it fit to come and search for us.
Yes.
It's amazing how the Lord searches for us, isn't it?
Okay.
Yes, you see, Busi, I can just picture some of our young people in church that are inside the church, but they do not know that they're lost.
Yes, yes. You can be lost inside. You can be lost inside the
Because
church like a coin.
the coin was inside the house.
Yes, it was inside the house. It was in a safe environment. But you can be lost within a safe environment.
But Busi, you know, it's good to say that the Lord is the one who came searching for us. That's what we understand that Christ came to do when He came to live and die for us. But do you think that the Lord searches for us today through other means as well?
Yes, He searches for us through other means as well, definitely, because, you know, what attracts you to Christ may not be what attracted me to Christ.
So you mean that every time I'm sitting in church and I'm listening to a message being preached at that moment, so taking what you're saying, can I assume that that preacher who is there, he is actually trying to find me?
Yes.
Or should I say God
It's trying to find
you
through Him.
Through Him.
Definitely.
So it pays to pay attention then.
It pays. It pays. You are not wasting time when you go to church. You are not wasting time. You never know that might be the day, that particular day when you go to church.
When we'll be found.
That God will find us. So it's not a waste of time.
And there's also another point there that it pays to reach out to our brethren who is weak in church. Because who knows that the Lord uses you that particular moment to find them in the straw inside the house.
Yeah, because the Lord uses, when parents are talking to their children, telling them to choose the path of righteousness over the path of wickedness, God is speaking. When our friends are telling us, Paul, this is not the way, this is what the Bible says, God is speaking through them. When we hear the preachers preaching, God is speaking to them. So it's amazing how God goes out of His way to speak to us through a medium that we might understand.
You know, I mentioned something. I said, you know, a coin in our time, a coin is insignificant. And sometimes I look at myself and say, Lord, but who am I? who am I that you could come down and die for me? Now, you know, when you read in the Old Testament, the Bible says, God says to the Israelites, lest they be pompous and proud. He says, I did not choose you because you were numerous than other nations. You were actually nothing. You were few, but I chose you because I love you. And when I look at myself, that's what Christ did. He came down and he showed me love, embraced me, and he found me like that lost coin.
Busi, it's amazing what you're saying. So regardless what anyone think of me, no matter what anyone think of me, I have settled in my mind that I have been chosen by God. And I am extremely valuable. For him to leave the splendor of heaven, the luxuries of all that is in the heavens above, the worship of angels, for him to come down to this earth here in search of me, must mean that I am valuable. And to those of you who are at home, never underestimate your value. Let your value be dependent on who Christ is and what he has done, not on what you think or your friends or those around you that think. June, I'm sure that you are waiting to resonate with one portion of this parable.
Well, Paul, I can resonate the parable of the lost sheep, because there was a time in my life that I was so fascinated with evolution. I stuck myself with books on evolution, and I read and I devour them, and unbeknownst to my parents that I was really convinced of evolution, to the extent that I believed later that I would exist without my parents. When I confronted my father about it, he cried. And I knew, like the lost sheep, I knew that I was lost. But the Lord, through my father, took me back. And I could resonate with that parable.
Are you saying, June, you are mentioning something critical? As I work with young people, they are ardent readers. They read a lot. And sometimes some of them read wrong literature. Literature about sorcery and other things, which leads them astray. And they could be lost in that sense.
Exactly.
And so they need to be careful that they shouldn't read in obscurity some literature, but there is a good book that they can read which can inspire them instead of reading books that will lead them astray like that sheep.
Yeah, because you see, if you read those books that sometimes has scientific backups, and then you contrast it with the Desire of Ages. Desire of Ages means nothing, because you have now a book with scientific backup.
Yeah, it's exciting to read a book like that.
And so it could easily lead you astray, because you know, you develop your scientific mind that what you see you believe. And you could get lost that way.
Yeah. But June, a sheep is a very humble animal.
I was humble, but I was lost.
So it doesn't matter how people look at you, because looks can be deceiving.
Yeah, exactly.
There are many young people in our church who look good. They don't smoke, they don't drink, but they could be lost.
But Busi, I was a student leader.
You were active in your church?
In our academy. Yeah, I was active. I was the AWA Adventist youth leader.
Wow.
But inside me, I was lost. That's amazing. I mean, I was in church, but I was not converted.
Your body was in church.
Yeah.
And if I'm not
But your
mistaken,
mind and soul were somewhere else.
if I'm not mistaken, your father was a pastor or is a pastor.
Yeah.
You mean this is a pastor's son, Busi?
This is a pastor's son who was reading a literature that was destructive to
so
his...
we need to be careful also then, Busi, as pastors.
Yes,
that we make sure our children also are guided and we know what's happening in their lives.
Yes.
It's thanks, June, for this valuable lesson for us as pastors also. But June, what I'm interested in is, after your father reeled you back through the grace of God, how was that experience?
You see, there is like a transformation. Then I developed that sense of emptiness. There's something empty in my life. So that needs to be filled up.
June, when we get back, we'll talk about how that emptiness was filled. Please stay with us. When we get back, we'll discover how Dr. Nigre's emptiness of soul was filled when he came back into the fold of Christ.